The courtroom was completely silent. Grace stood at the witness stand holding up a thick folder of papers. Her hands had stopped shaking now. Her voice was clear and strong. "Your Honor," she said, "I have 12 years of emails, text messages, bank statements, and business records. They show exactly how much I gave to my husband's company." Across the room, her husband David's smile disappeared from his face. His expensive lawyer looked confused and worried. David gripped the armrest of his chair so tight his knuckles turned white. Grace continued, "I have proof that I was listed as co-founder in the original business plan. I have proof that my signature is on every major loan. And I have proof that my husband erased my name from all company records just 6 months before he filed for divorce." The judge leaned forward with interest. David's face went pale. His lawyer whispered something urgent in his ear, but David couldn't speak. He just stared at Grace like he was seeing a ghost. How did it come to this moment? How did a woman with no lawyer end up defeating a millionaire and his team of attorneys? To understand that, we need to go back to where it all began, to a small apartment in Port Harcourt, where Grace's journey started 12 years earlier. Grace met David Morrison at a business conference in Port Harcourt in 2010. He was charming and full of big dreams. He talked about starting a technology company that would change Nigeria. He had no money, just ideas written on napkins and notebooks. Grace believed in him. She believed in his vision. More importantly, she believed they would build it together. They got married 6 months later in a small ceremony. Grace's family warned her that David seemed too ambitious, too focused on himself. But Grace saw something different. She saw a partner. She saw a future. David had an idea for a cybersecurity business. He wanted to help Nigerian companies protect their computer systems from hackers. It was a good idea, but he had no money to start. No investors would listen to him. Banks refused to give him loans. That's when Grace stepped in. She worked as a bookkeeper at a small accounting firm in Lagos. She didn't earn much, but she had been saving money for years. She had dreams of maybe opening her own business someday. Instead, she gave that money to David. "This is our future," he told her, holding her hands. "We're building this together. When the company succeeds, it will be ours, yours and mine." Grace believed him. She used their rent money to buy David's first computer server. When he couldn't afford an office, she cleared out their tiny garage. She ran cables and set up desks herself, watching YouTube videos to learn how. Would Grace's sacrifice and trust be rewarded, or was she making the biggest mistake of her life? Maya worked day and night to help David build his company. During the day, she kept her bookkeeping job to pay their bills. At night and on weekends, she worked for David's business, for free. She answered phone calls from potential clients. She wrote business proposals. She managed the company's books and finances. She did everything David needed while he focused on meeting investors and building connections. "You're amazing," David would tell her, kissing her forehead. "I couldn't do this without you, Maya. You're my partner in everything." Those words made all the hard work feel worth it. Maya believed they were building their dream together, side by side. In 2012, David needed to apply for a business loan from a government program. The Small Business Administration required detailed paperwork. David asked Maya to help him fill out the forms. On the application, David listed Maya as co-founder and chief financial officer of Crosstech Solutions. That's what they named the company. "Is this true?" Maya asked, pointing at her title on the paper. "Of course it's true," David said, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. "You are the co-founder. You made this happen just as much as I did. Your name deserves to be on everything." Maya smiled. She felt proud. She felt valued. She signed the documents without any worry. They got the loan, 50,000 naira. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep going. Crosstech Solutions slowly began to grow. They got their first real client, then a second, then a third. By 2014, David landed a meeting with a big investor named Julian Hayes. Julian was impressed with David's presentation. But he had questions about the company's finances and operations. "Who handles your books?" Julian asked. "My wife Maya," David answered proudly. "She handles all our financials. She's the backbone of this operation. Honestly, Julian, I couldn't do this without her. She's kept us alive when I wanted to give up. She's the real hero here." Maya wasn't at that meeting, but David told her everything afterward. His words filled her heart with joy. She felt seen. She felt appreciated. But things were about to change in ways Maya never expected. By 2015, Crosstech Solutions was making real money. They hired their first employees. They moved into an actual office in Lagos. David started wearing expensive suits and attending business conferences across Nigeria. He was becoming successful. Their dream was coming true. Or so Maya thought. One night in 2016, David came home looking stressed and worried. He sat at their kitchen table with his head in his hands. "What's wrong?" Maya asked, sitting beside him. "We're in trouble," David said quietly. "We lost our biggest client today. I can't make payroll next week. I might have to shut everything down." Maya's heart sank. After all their hard work, all their sacrifice, it couldn't end like this. "How much do you need?" she asked. David looked up at her with tired eyes. 47,000 naira. "But Maya, I can't ask you." "You're not asking," Maya interrupted. "I'm offering." She had been saving money again. Not much, but enough. She had been putting aside small amounts from her salary, dreaming of maybe taking a vacation someday or buying new furniture for their apartment. Instead, she gave it all to David. The next morning, Maya went to the bank and withdrew every naira she had saved. She brought the money to David's office and handed him a check for 47,000 naira. David stared at the check, then at Maya. Tears filled his eyes. "I'll pay you back," he promised. "With interest. I swear, Maya. This is just a loan." "We're married," Maya said, squeezing his hand. "What's mine is yours. We're in this together." David hugged her tight. "I love you so much. You're everything to me." The money saved the company. David was able to pay his employees and keep the business running. 2 months later, Crosstech Solutions landed an even bigger client. The company not only survived, it started to thrive. But David never paid Maya back. Not 1 naira. Not ever. When Maya asked about it months later, David looked confused. "Pay you back? Maya, we're married. Our money is shared. What's the point of paying you back?" Something felt wrong about his answer, but Maya pushed the doubt away. She trusted him. She loved him. Would Maya's trust prove to be her greatest strength or her biggest mistake? By 2018, Crosstech Solutions was worth millions. David had become one of the most successful young entrepreneurs in Lagos. His face appeared in business magazines. He gave speeches at conferences. People called him a genius. Maya was happy for him. She was proud of what they had built together. But something had changed. Something she couldn't quite name at first. David stopped asking for her help with the business. He hired professional accountants and managers. He said the company was growing up and needed real professionals. "What about me?" Maya asked one evening. "I've been handling the books since the beginning." "You did great, baby," David said, not looking up from his phone. "But we need people with degrees now. MBA types. You understand, right?" Maya felt a sting in her chest, but she nodded. Maybe he was right. Maybe the company had outgrown her. She kept her bookkeeping job and focused on being a supportive wife. She attended David's business dinners and smiled for photos. She listened to him talk about deals and investors. But she noticed that when David introduced her to important people, he never mentioned her role in building the company. He just said, "This is my wife, Maya." One night at a fancy restaurant in Abuja, David was having dinner with potential investors. Maya sat beside him, wearing her best dress. An older businessman asked David about the early days of Crosstech. "It must have been difficult starting from nothing," the man said. "It was," David agreed. "I worked 18-hour days. Taught myself everything. I built that company from the ground up with my own 2 hands." Maya's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. She stared at David, waiting for him to mention her. Waiting for him to say, "we" instead of "I." He never did. On the drive home, Maya was quiet. David didn't seem to notice. He was too busy celebrating the new deal he had just closed. "Did you forget something tonight?" Maya finally asked. "What do you mean?" David glanced at her. "When you told that story about starting the company, you forgot to mention me." David laughed. Not a mean laugh, but a dismissive one. "Maya, they don't need to hear every little detail. I was just giving them the highlights." "I'm not a little detail," Maya said softly. "I was there from the beginning. And I appreciate that," David said, reaching over to pat her hand. "You were very supportive. But let's be honest, I'm the one who built the company. You helped, sure. But I did the real work." Maya felt like she'd been slapped. She pulled her hand away and looked out the window. The lights of Abuja blurred as tears filled her eyes. That night marked the beginning of the end, though Maya didn't know it yet. Over the next 2 years, David grew colder and more distant. He traveled constantly for business. He bought expensive cars and designer clothes. He moved them into a huge house in an exclusive part of Lagos. But he never put Maya's name on the deed. When she asked why, he said it was simpler for taxes, to keep it in his name only. Maya started to notice other changes too. David had hired a new assistant, a young woman named Jennifer who traveled with him everywhere. Maya told herself not to be jealous. She told herself to trust her husband. But late one night in 2020, Maya couldn't sleep. David was away on another business trip. She went to his home office to find a book to read. That's when she saw the papers on his desk. They were legal documents, company filings, corporate registrations. Maya started reading through them, her heart pounding faster with each page. Her name was gone, completely erased. The original business plan that listed her as co-founder? There was a new version with only David's name. The loan documents she had signed? New copies existed with just his signature. Every record of her involvement had been systematically removed and replaced. Maya sat down in David's leather chair, papers scattered around her. Her hands were shaking. Her mind was racing. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a mistake. David had deliberately erased her from the story of Crosstech Solutions. She kept digging through the files. That's when she found something else. Documents for a company called Cross Holdings LLC, registered in another state. It held millions in assets. And until recently, Maya had been listed as a 50% beneficiary. But 6 months ago, her name had been removed from those papers too. Maya sat in that office until sunrise, reading every document she could find. By the time the sun came up, she understood the truth. David wasn't just erasing her from the company. He was preparing to divorce her and take everything. When David came home 2 days later, Maya was waiting for him. She had copied every document she found. She had hidden them in a safe place. "We need to talk," she said. David barely looked at her. "Can it wait? I'm exhausted from traveling." "No," Maya said firmly. "It can't wait. I found the papers, David. I know what you're doing." For the first time in months, David really looked at her. His expression changed from tired to cold in an instant. "What papers?" he asked carefully. "The company documents. Cross Holdings. Everything. You've been erasing me." David was silent for a long moment. Then he shrugged. "Maya, those are just legal technicalities. Business stuff. You wouldn't understand." "Don't talk to me like I'm stupid," Maya said, her voice shaking with anger. "I kept your company alive. I gave you everything I had. And you're trying to steal it from me." "Steal?" David laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "You can't steal what's yours. I built that company. My ideas. My work. My success. You were just there." Those words, "just there," cut deeper than any knife could. What would Maya do now that she knew the truth about the man she had loved and trusted for 12 years? 3 weeks later, Maya came home from work to find divorce papers on the kitchen table. David wasn't even there. He had his lawyer deliver them and left for a business trip. Maya sat down and read through the documents with trembling hands. David was offering her 50,000 naira as a one-time settlement. 50,000 naira for 12 years of marriage. 50,000 naira for a company worth 18 million. The papers said she had 30 days to respond. If she didn't respond, David would get everything by default. Maya called her sister Ruth that night, crying so hard she could barely speak. "He's taking everything," Maya sobbed into the phone. "Everything we built together. And he's offering me almost nothing." "You need a lawyer," Ruth said firmly. "A good one. Someone who can fight him." Maya had already thought about that. She had called 5 different law firms in Lagos. When they heard she was going up against David Morrison and his legal team, they all said the same thing. Their fees would be at least 200,000 naira up front. Maya didn't have 200,000 naira. David had controlled their finances for years. She had her small salary from her bookkeeping job, but that was barely enough for rent and food. "I can't afford a lawyer," Maya whispered. "Ruth, I can't afford to fight him." "Then what will you do?" Ruth asked. Maya was quiet for a long time. Then something stirred inside her, something that had been sleeping for too long. It was anger, yes, but it was also determination, strength, courage. "I'll represent myself," Maya said. "What?" "Maya, you can't." "I can," Maya interrupted. "I will. I have all the evidence. I know the truth. I don't need an expensive lawyer to tell my story." Over the next 6 months, Maya transformed herself. She moved into a tiny one-bedroom apartment in a cheaper part of Lagos. David kept the big house, the cars, everything. Maya took only what she could carry. But she also took something else, copies of every important document from David's office. Emails, bank statements, business plans, loan applications, partnership agreements, everything. Every night after work, Maya studied. She went to the law library and read books about divorce law and property rights. She learned about community property and marital assets. She studied how to present evidence in court. She organized all her documents into folders with labels and dates. She created timelines showing exactly when she had contributed money, work, and ideas to Crosstech Solutions. She found old emails where David had called her his co-founder and his partner. She tracked down former employees who had witnessed her involvement in the company. She asked them if they would testify in court. Most said yes. They had seen what Maya did. They knew the truth. Maya also discovered something important in her research. Nigeria had laws protecting spouses in divorce cases. If property was acquired during a marriage, both partners had rights to it, especially if both partners had contributed to acquiring it. David thought Maya was too weak to fight back. He thought she would just sign the papers and disappear. He was wrong. When the court date arrived, Maya was ready. She had prepared her case like a lawyer would. She had her evidence organized. She had her witnesses lined up. She knew exactly what she needed to prove. She bought a simple navy suit from a market stall and pressed it carefully. She pulled her hair back into a neat bun. She packed her old briefcase with all her documents. And she walked into that courtroom alone, ready to face her husband and his 3 expensive lawyers. That's how we arrived at the moment from the beginning of our story. Maya standing in front of Judge Patricia Williams, holding up proof of everything David had tried to hide. The judge looked at the documents Maya had presented. She looked at David, whose face had gone pale. She looked at his lawyer, Kenneth Brooks, who was frantically whispering to his client. Mrs. Adeyemi, Judge Williams said, "These are serious allegations. You're claiming that your husband committed fraud by removing you from company documents." "Yes, Your Honor," Maya said clearly. "And I have proof." "Mr. Brooks," the judge turned to David's lawyer, "does your client wish to respond?" Kenneth Brooks stood up, straightening his expensive tie. "Your Honor, we were not aware of these alleged documents during the discovery process." "That's because your client never asked," Maya said calmly. "He assumed I didn't have anything. He assumed I was too broken to fight back." "Mrs. Adeyemi, please refrain from speaking out of turn," Judge Williams said, but her eyes showed interest, not anger. "My apologies, Your Honor," Maya said. The judge looked at Kenneth Brooks. "We will address the admissibility of these documents as we proceed. For now, let's move to witness testimony. Mrs. Adeyemi, do you have witnesses?" "Yes, Your Honor." "I call Marcus Johnson to the stand." A man in his mid-30s stood up from the gallery. He wore a simple gray suit and walked to the witness stand with steady steps. He was sworn in and sat down. Maya approached him. "Mr. Johnson, can you please state your relationship to the defendant?" "I worked for Crosstech Solutions from 2015 to 2021 as a senior network engineer," Marcus said. "And during that time did you interact with me?" "Yes, ma'am." "You were in the office all the time, especially in the early years. You handled the books, managed client communications, even helped with technical documentation. Did Mr. Adeyemi ever refer to me in any official capacity?" Marcus hesitated, glancing at David. "He called you his co-founder. At least he did until around 2020. What changed in 2020? He started telling people you were just his wife. That you didn't really work for the company. But those of us who were there from the beginning, we knew better." Kenneth Brooks jumped to his feet. "Objection, Your Honor." "Hearsay." "Overruled," Judge Williams said. "This is testimony about the witness's personal observations. Continue, Mrs. Adeyemi." Maya nodded, feeling stronger with each word. "Mr. Johnson, do you remember a night in 2016 when the company almost went under?" "Yes, ma'am." "We lost a major client and payroll was short. Mr. Adeyemi was ready to shut everything down. What happened? You came in with a check, personal funds. You covered 2 months of payroll out of your own savings. You told him to keep going, that it would work out." Marcus looked directly at the judge. "And it did work out. That money saved the company." Could Marcus's testimony be enough to prove that Maya was more than just a supportive wife? After Marcus stepped down, Maya called her second witness, a woman named Rachel Stevens who had been one of David's first business partners. Rachel testified that Maya had been present at every major business meeting in the company's first 5 years. "She wasn't just sitting quietly in the corner," Rachel said firmly. "Maya contributed ideas. She reviewed contracts. She warned us when deals looked risky. David valued her opinion back then." "And later?" Maya asked. Rachel's expression grew sad. Later, David stopped bringing her to meetings. He stopped mentioning her contributions. It was like he wanted everyone to forget she had ever been part of the company. By the time the morning session ended, the mood in the courtroom had completely shifted. David's confident smile was gone. His lawyers were whispering urgently among themselves. People in the gallery were murmuring. During the lunch recess, Maya sat alone at her table reviewing her notes. She heard footsteps approaching and looked up to see David standing there. "You're making a mistake," he said quietly, his voice tight with anger. "Am I?" Maya met his eyes without fear. "You think embarrassing me in court is going to get you anything? You think this ends well for you? I'm not trying to embarrass you, David. I'm trying to get what I'm owed." "You're owed nothing," he hissed. "That's what the judge will decide." David leaned closer, lowering his voice to a threatening whisper. "You should have taken the $50,000 I offered. Now you're going to leave here with nothing." Maya smiled, a small, sad smile. "You still don't get it, do you?" "Get what?" "I already have nothing. You made sure of that when you told me I wasn't good enough, smart enough, valuable enough. You took everything I built with you and called it yours." She looked at him steadily. "So no, David. I'm not afraid of leaving here with nothing. I've been living with nothing for years." David's jaw clenched. "You're going to regret this." "Maybe," Maya said softly. "But at least I'll regret it on my own terms." He turned and walked away, his expensive shoes clicking against the marble floor. Maya watched him go, her hands steady, her resolve unshaken. When court resumed that afternoon, Judge Williams called David to the witness stand. He walked up confidently, was sworn in, and sat down like a man who had done this 100 times before. Kenneth Brooks asked him easy questions first. David spoke smoothly about building his company, working 18-hour days, teaching himself everything. "And what role did Mrs. Adeyemi play in the company's founding?" Brooks asked. David's expression softened, almost sympathetic. "Maya was supportive, of course. She's my wife. But her involvement was minimal. She helped with some basic tasks early on, but the real work, the technical development, the business strategy, the investor relations, that was all me." Maya watched him lie under oath, her face calm. She had heard these lies before. But now she had the evidence to prove they were lies. "Your witness, Mrs. Adeyemi," Judge Williams said. Maya stood, gathering her papers. She approached the witness stand slowly, deliberately. "Mr. Adeyemi, you testified that you paid me back the 47,000 naira I loaned you in 2016. Is that correct?" "Yes, with interest," David said confidently. "Can you tell the court what interest rate you used?" He hesitated for just a moment. "I believe it was 5% annually." Maya nodded. "So on a 47,000 naira loan over 2 years, that would be approximately 52,000 total. Does that sound right?" "Approximately, yes." "Your Honor, I'd like to submit Exhibit A, bank statements from our joint account during 2017 and 2018. Maya handed copies to the court officer. She turned back to David. "Can you point to the transaction where you repaid me 52,000 naira? David's eyes scanned the papers. "It wouldn't be one transaction. It would have been several." "Several? Can you point to any of them?" His jaw tightened. "I don't have those records in front of me right now." "That's convenient," Maya said calmly, "because I do have records. These are statements from your personal business account during the same period. There's no record of any repayment. Not a single transfer." Kenneth Brooks stood up. "Objection, Your Honor. Mrs. Adeyemi is testifying rather than questioning." Sustained. "Please phrase your statements as questions, Mrs. Adeyemi." "Of course, Your Honor." Maya turned back to David. "Did you ever actually repay me that money?" "I provided for you. The mortgage, the car, the expenses." "That's not what I asked. Did you ever repay the 47,000 naira? Yes or no?" David's silence filled the courtroom like thunder. Maya pulled out another document. "Let's talk about something else. You said I wasn't a co-founder of Crosstech Solutions. Is that correct?" "That's correct." "Then can you explain why your original business plan, filed with the Small Business Administration in 2012, lists me as co-founder and chief financial officer?" She handed the document to the court officer. The courtroom went completely silent. Kenneth Brooks leaned forward, his face showing confusion. Judge Williams raised her eyebrows slightly. David stared at the paper like it had betrayed him. I must have listed her for the application. It helped with the loan approval." "So you committed fraud?" Maya asked. "No. You listed me as a co-founder to secure a loan, But now you're saying I was never actually a co-founder. Which is it, Mr. Adeyemi? Were you lying then or are you lying now? Kenneth Brooks jumped up again. Objection. Argumentative. Sustained. Rephrase, Mrs. Adeyemi. Maya took a breath. Mr. Adeyemi, if I wasn't a co-founder, why did you put my name on legal documents presented to federal authorities? It was just a formality. A formality? Maya pulled out a thick folder. Let me show you another formality. These are emails between you and your first major investor, Julian Hayes. In them, you repeatedly refer to we and our team. You say, Maya handles all our financials and she's the backbone of operations. She looked at him directly. Would you like me to read them aloud, or would you like to acknowledge that I was more than just a supportive wife? What would David say now that his own words had exposed his lies? David's face flushed red with anger and embarrassment. You're taking things out of context, he said weakly. Maya pulled out another email and read it aloud. This one is from March 2014. Julian, I couldn't do this without Maya. She's kept us afloat when I wanted to give up. She's the real hero here. Did you write that, Mr. Adeyemi? Yes, but... Yes or no is sufficient, Maya said firmly. Did you write that? Yes. Thank you. Maya returned to her table and picked up another document. Now let's discuss what happened in 2020. You stopped referring to me as a co-founder around that time. Can you tell the court why? David shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The company was growing. We were bringing in professional executives. It was time to formalize the operation. Formalize? Is that why you removed my name from the corporate registry? I streamlined the paperwork. You erased me, Maya said, her voice quiet but strong. You went through every document, every filing, every record, and you removed my name. You rewrote history. And then 6 months later you filed for divorce. Isn't that true? I filed for divorce because our marriage wasn't working. Our marriage wasn't working, or I had served my purpose? Kenneth Brooks stood up quickly. Objection, Your Honor. Mrs. Adeyemi is making speeches, not asking questions. Judge Williams looked at Maya. Please stick to questions, Mrs. Adeyemi. Yes, Your Honor. Maya composed herself. Mr. Adeyemi, during our marriage, did I ever sign away my rights to marital property? No. Did I ever agree in writing to forfeit my claim to the business I helped build? You didn't build it. The words exploded from David's mouth. The mask had finally cracked. You help. There's a difference. I'm the one who wrote the software. I'm the one who pitched investors. I'm the one who grew the company. You were just there. The courtroom went completely still. Even Kenneth Brooks looked uncomfortable with his client's outburst. Maya stepped closer to the witness stand. Just there, she repeated softly. I was just there when you cried because you thought you'd failed. Just there when you couldn't make payroll and I covered it with my own money. Just there when you needed someone to believe in you because no one else did. David's jaw worked, but he said nothing. I have one more question, Maya said. When you filed for divorce, you offered me 50,000 naira, a one-time payment to walk away from 12 years of marriage and a company worth 18 million. Do you think that's fair? I think it's generous, David said coldly. Generous for a woman who gave you everything. You didn't give me everything. You gave me support. That's what spouses do. Maya nodded slowly. You're right. That is what spouses do. They support each other. They build together. They sacrifice together. And when success comes, they share it. She turned to face the judge. But that's not what happened here. He took everything we built and called it his own. And when I asked for my fair share, he laughed at me, just like he laughed when he saw me walk into this courtroom. Maya's voice grew stronger. No further questions, Your Honor. The silence was deafening as Maya returned to her table. Judge Williams watched David for a long moment before speaking. Mr. Adeyemi, you may step down. The judge looked at the clock. We'll take a 15-minute recess before closing arguments. During the break, a court officer approached Maya. Mrs. Adeyemi, there's someone here to see you. An elegant woman in her 60s stood nearby, wearing a burgundy suit. Her silver hair was styled beautifully and her eyes held warmth. I'm Evelyn Carter, the woman said. I'm an attorney. I've been watching your case and I'd like to offer my services, pro bono. Why would you help me? Maya asked, surprised. Because 20 years ago I was you. I fought alone and barely won. I became a lawyer so other women wouldn't have to fight alone. Court resumed before Maya could respond. Evelyn handed her a business card and whispered, Keep going. You're doing brilliantly. Kenneth Brooks gave his closing argument, polished but unconvincing after David's testimony. When Maya's turn came, she stood and spoke clearly. Your Honor, I'm not a lawyer. I'm just a woman who spent 12 years building something, only to watch the man I loved erase me from the story. But I kept records. I remembered everything. I came for justice, not revenge. Her voice strengthened. Nigeria has community property laws. What we built together belongs to both of us. I kept the business alive when it was failing. I invested my money when no one else would. I sacrificed everything to help him succeed. Now I'm asking for my half, not as charity but because I earned it. Judge Williams reviewed her notes for several long minutes. Finally she looked up. This case requires careful consideration. Both parties will submit additional financial documents within 10 days. We'll reconvene in 2 weeks for my final ruling. Court is adjourned. Maya called Evelyn that evening. I accept your help. Over the next 2 weeks they worked together tirelessly. They uncovered offshore accounts David had hidden. They found a shell company called Cross Holdings LLC worth 4 million naira. Maya's name had been removed 6 months before David filed for divorce. When they returned to court, the room was packed. News had spread about the woman fighting her millionaire husband. Evelyn presented their new evidence powerfully. Your Honor, this wasn't estate planning. This was divorce planning. Mr. Adeyemi systematically removed Mrs. Adeyemi's name from every asset, then filed for divorce once the erasure was complete. This is financial fraud. Judge Williams called David back to the stand. When questioned about removing Maya's name, he stumbled, unable to answer clearly. Finally, the judge had heard enough. Mr. Adeyemi, Judge Williams said firmly, I've reviewed hundreds of documents and hours of testimony. Mrs. Adeyemi has proven she was instrumental in founding and operating Crosstech Solutions. You systematically erased her contributions and concealed assets. That is not fair. That is theft. She turned to Maya. Mrs. Adeyemi, you showed remarkable courage. You presented your case with dignity and precision. It has been an honor to witness. Judge Williams continued, based on all evidence presented, I rule in favor of the petitioner. Mrs. Adeyemi is entitled to 50% of all marital assets, including Crosstech Solutions, Cross Holdings LLC, all real estate, retirement accounts, and any other assets acquired during the marriage. Maya's hands trembled. She could barely breathe. Additionally, the judge said, Mrs. Adeyemi is awarded 200,000 naira in attorney fees, to be paid by Mr. Adeyemi within 60 days. This case is closed. The gavel fell with finality. For a moment, silence. Then applause rippled through the gallery. Maya sat frozen, tears streaming down her face. Evelyn squeezed her shoulder, also crying. You did it, Evelyn whispered. We did it. Across the aisle, David sat slumped, his face pale. Kenneth Brooks was already packing his briefcase, the case lost. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded Maya with microphones. Mrs. Adeyemi, how do you feel? What message do you have for other women? Maya took a deep breath. Justice is never easy, but it's always worth fighting for. If someone is trying to erase you, trying to take what you earned, don't let them. Keep your records. Tell your truth. You're not alone. Months passed. Maya used her settlement wisely, investing carefully. She opened a new business in Port Harcourt, Morrison Financial Consulting. The sign read, Empowering Women in Business. Inside, she hired a small team of women who had their own stories of being overlooked and underestimated. Together, they built something beautiful, something entirely theirs that no one could take away. One afternoon, Maya's phone rang. Mrs. Adeyemi, this is a reporter from Forbes magazine. We're doing a feature on women entrepreneurs who've overcome significant obstacles. We'd love to interview you. Maya smiled. I'd be honored. As she hung up, she looked around her office, at the dream taking shape, at the women working together, at the future she had built from nothing. David had tried to erase her. He had tried to make her invisible. But Maya had rewritten the story. This time she was the author of her own life. She had fought for justice and won, not just in court but in reclaiming her voice, her value, and her future. And that was worth more than any amount of money could ever be. We've come to the end of today's story. I hope it touched your heart. Thanks for watching and staying with us till the end. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. See you in the next one. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from?